The Toronto Maple Leafs have made a sneaky signing, and we're going to break down what that signing can mean going forward for the team on this episode of Leafs Digest, as well as Joseph Woll. He is putting up some incredible numbers, and there is reason to believe that he could be the best goalie in the NHL. And also, we have a Timothy Liljegren injury update, so stay tuned for all that. That's coming up right now. And without further ado, let's just get right into it, and thank you guys for your support. It has been unbelievable. Let's get into the sneaky signing. Now, the Leafs make a very, very interesting signing, and it's not going to break major headlines for the Leafs. It's not some crazy popular name, but it is a guy that could pay dividends going forward for the Maple Leafs if he can turn into a player that he once was back in a few years ago. Let's just get right into it. This guy is Kiefer Bellows. So the Marlies have signed Kiefer Bellows to a PTO, and Bellows scored 3 goals in 27 games last season with the Flyers, which is not super impressive, but he is a former first-round pick who plays a power game, which the Leafs could use, and has a dangerous shot, which the Leafs could always use. This guy's very, very interesting. Now, he plays a power game, which could obviously be beneficial to the Leafs. The Leafs could use some more physicality, some more power wingers outside of the defensive spot. But Kiefer Bellows is a very, very interesting player. He's a left wing. He was drafted in 2016, and he could take over a potential wing spot for the Leafs if a spot opens up. Now, some Leafs fans are already very, very excited. You can see some Leafs fans here said, like this a lot for the Marlies. He was a former 19th overall pick in 2016. Hasn't really ever found his game at the NHL level, but had 10 points in 12 AHL games last year, and he's still only 25. And this was, of course, in the draft back in 2016, where Matthews was drafted number 1. He was drafted 19th. So, Kiefer Bellows. Interesting if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, because you're taking a flyer on a guy who's now 25 years old, has some experience at the NHL level, has performed not great, but had a decent year in 2021, 2022, which I'll show you shortly, but he plays the power game. The Leafs have yet to find a perfect left winger to pair with a few of their guys. Obviously, a few of our wingers, Nylander has been phenomenal to start the year, but obviously this guy is not going to be one to slot in the top 6 by any means whatsoever, at least at the start, if he even makes the NHL camp. But signing him to the Marlies gives him a chance to be a guy that he once was sought out to be back in 2016 when he was drafted 19th in the first round. Obviously, a team saw some potential in him when he was drafted, that early in the first round, being 19th and not, the second or third, later on in the draft. However, he is a guy who struggled so far in the NHL, which is a little bit unfortunate. Looking at the stats so far throughout his career, he's put up some very, very impressive seasons, particularly a few years ago. Now, as recently as last year, he played with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, put up 3 goals, 7 assists, and 10 points through 12 games. Recent NHL experience includes the Flyers, 27 games, 3 goals with no assists. Now, it's interesting because he played at the NHL not very much, but from 2019 to 2022, his most notable season would be his 2021 season with the New York Islanders, where he put up 6 goals and 13 points in only 45 games, total 19 points. Very, very interesting. Now, he hasn't really performed, like he hasn't been a great NHL player in his short time and short stints in the NHL, but he has been a guy who showed a little bit of, premise, a little bit of potential, and he could be maybe a goal scorer going forward for the Maple Leafs. In his 2017, you look at the Portland Winterhawks, he put up 41 goals in 56 games. He has a lot of potential. He could be a power guy that could fit into the Leafs system. The only issue is, can he translate it? Maybe a change of scenery would help, but could he translate some of his earlier success into success with the Marlies, which will ultimately then translate into success with the Toronto Maple Leafs? That's the big question. That's the question no one really has an answer to, but it is very, very interesting that he was, got picked up today by the Maple Leafs, their AHL team, the Marlies, and I'm curious to see how Kiefer Bellows performs, and this could be a guy that we keep an eye on going forward, because ultimately he may have an impact on the NHL team later this season, depending on any injuries that occur, maybe depending how he performs with the Marlies, or it could be a guy that we don't really speak about much more going forward. But at the very least, it's a sneaky signing. He's been in the NHL before, has a little bit of experience. I have some faith in him, especially given the fact that he's only 25 years old and was in that Matthews draft and has had some success before. So let me know what your thoughts are on that, if you think it's a no, not worth really talking about, or if you think that he could have an impact going forward. Now, speaking of an impact, we got to discuss Joseph Woll. He is unbelievable. Some more stats have come out regarding him. He obviously didn't start the last game in our loss against the Nashville Predators in overtime, but Joseph Woll, according to some stats, could be the best goalie in the NHL so far throughout the season. And Joseph Woll is a guy that I've discussed on several videos before he kind of became our number one starter, saying that he needs to replace Ilya Samsonov in that number one starter spot because he's proved it at all levels of his game. And he has absolutely proven me right. He's proven all the Leafs fans right. And hopefully he's gotten the confidence of Sheldon Keefe at this point. So we can look at this now. Top goalies as of Sunday, which was yesterday. Joseph Woll in 4 games played. Obviously not as many games played as guys like Alexander Gorzachev, but he's still the number one on this list. And you can pause, you can look at all the stats. His goals saved above expected per 60 minutes is 2.28. His expected goals against are 13. His goals saved above expected is 8.6. All these fancy numbers. The point is, according to advanced metrics, he is the best goalie in the NHL through however many games there has been in the NHL. With Jerry Swayman very, very close at number 2. However, this just goes to show how important Joseph Woll has been to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Not even this year, during last year, the playoffs, and just throughout his short Leafs tenure. He has been unbelievable. He's been dominant, and he is the best goalie in the NHL right now, according to advanced analytics, albeit in the smaller sample size compared to some of the other guys. But when you even look at goals saved above expected leaders, obviously, he's not number one in this. The stats are very, very similar. They evaluate slightly different things. You have Jake Allen and Jeremy Swayman at 1 and 2, but Joseph Woll only 0.6 saves behind Jake Allen for that number 1 slot. This is by JFresh Hockey. The point is, according to this data from Top Down Hockey, he is top 3 goalie in the NHL. According to this data, he is number 1 in the NHL, according to MoneyPuck.com. Everyone's starting to realize that Joseph Woll might be a guy who could be instrumental for the Leafs going forward. And we all know how important Joseph Woll is to the team, this season. It's been very, very articulated by me, articulated by many people, many writers. But the extent to which he is playing, we might be taking for granted a little bit just how good he's been, because the advanced metrics support it, the eye test supports it, and the stats support it, as he is putting up a phenomenal season. And his goals against average is a 1.33 through 4 games. And again, at every single level he's been through, he has been unbelievable, especially for the Leafs throughout his very, very short time with the Maple Leafs, only playing about 15 games. So that'll wrap up that section, but just wanted to give huge praise to Joseph Woll, because he's a guy that we all love. He's been unbelievable, and the Leafs may have finally found their goalie solution after so many years of desperation, trying to find that one guy who can lock down that spot for the foreseeable future. We got a young, up-and-coming, rising star in Joseph Woll, and it is crazy to believe and to see that he is borderline a top 3 goalie in the NHL so far throughout this season. And hopefully he continue that, because I don't want to jinx it and knock on wood or anything, but knocking on wood, right now, he is the best goalie in the NHL. All right, let's quickly move on to the last topic here, which is a bit of positive news if you are a Leafs fan, as we have a Lily injury update. If you saw my video yesterday, this injury is very, very important. Hopefully it's not too long, and it looks like that is the way that it is going. Masters, good news for the Leafs. Timothy Liljegren on the ice at practice, had left Saturday's game with an upper body injury. Jake McCabe remains absent. So if you looked at our video yesterday, we were discussing some potential, replacements for obviously our defender who got hurt, Timothy Liljegren. However, it looks like he may not even be needing a stint away from the team because of injury, which is very, very good. If you saw our video yesterday, I discussed Lagesson, potential for him to, be called up, and if Liljegren had to miss significant time, but none of that's really going to matter at this point, so maybe Lagesson will have to wait till his next time. Maybe another injury happened before he comes back, but Liljegren is back on the ice. He's back at practice. Unfortunately, Jake McCabe remains absent, which is a bit unfortunate. That injury seems to be a bit more serious than we initially thought, even though Sheldon Keefe came out a couple days ago and said it wasn't that serious. It looks like Jake McCabe won't be good to go tomorrow when we play. That being said, Timothy Liljegren should hopefully be good to go, albeit he still has an upper body injury, but it doesn't seem as serious as we once thought, which is very, very important, because I was getting a little bit worried. Our defensive depth is already very, very shallow as is, and relying on a guy like Lagesson, who has performed very well in the AHL, I would rather have Timothy Liljegren. But that'll wrap up the video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Tons of stuff we went over today. Joseph Woll is unbelievable, and hopefully Timothy Liljegren will be available for tomorrow. Let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are on the sneaky signing as well. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.